Lots of things we learned today. The most important thing I think I learned is that my kids may be single-handedly responsible for making the U.S. a real innovator between YouTube and
Cat videos.
Snapchat and Finstagram, which I don't even know if you know what Finstagram is.
Not yet.
Well, you don't have high schoolers. So what are some of the things we learned today? We started out, we're talking this morning about is all this technology making business more productive? It was one of our paradoxes. For the last 25 years, we keep hearing about the revolution, but we haven't really been seeing it. But then today we heard again and again from a number of different people, a number of different industries, that they're really dependent on technology, and it really is changing things. Mike Stern, big data and digital ag is going to feed the world.
Martin Brand brought up that blockchains and the cloud are truly transformative technologies.
Yeah, John Stein and Betterment, FinTech. Betterment and other FinTech companies are going to create the next Amazon of financial advice. And then we also had Mike Fries, the convergence of content and the pipes. And all this is happening with the use of technology. And Martin Brand made a really good point as well. He said, we're also misvaluing certain assets, or we're not valuing. All this data is really valuable. It's not on our balance sheets, so we don't have the value for that. And one other thing that was sort of interesting, we looked at GDP per worker and said, well, it's not increasing fast enough. But what about all that money that we hear about that's being made offshore? That's not US GDP. So is part of it the fact that some of the productivity has just moved offshore, or the valuations of it have moved offshore?
But we also talked, in some sense, Mitchell, you've been talking a lot about data, big data. Some people call it data science. And we think that there's a lot of value in gathering data, whether it's about the depth of a seed or the conditions under which it was planted. But the next step in technology is using data to guide us, to guide the doctor in how to diagnose, to guide the computer in how to play chess. But we heard a lot, I think, today that kind of gives us pause, that we heard the phrase that AI might be stuck. Why might it be stuck? Well, Professor Galertner said, well, computers are good at chess, but they're not really good at understanding the human mind. Computers are good at mapping out the next chess move, but they can't even move the next chess piece. They can't even pick up a pen. So it suggests that AI has some serious challenges ahead. And what I thought was the most deeply thoughtful point was that, our ability to make progress with AI and to use it in our lives, to use it to diagnose diseases, to guide us in legal analysis, depends a lot on trust. To what extent can we trust the decision-making tool that we're using? And trust, as we all know, depends a lot on the ability of the agent to tell you why he or she got to where she got. And the most successful technologies being used today in terms of predicting the future, giving the best advice, rely on what are called neural networks that are incredibly opaque, give you an answer, seems pretty good, but it cannot tell you how it got what it got, why it got it.
Well, the other thing that they said that was really interesting was that a lot of the algorithms they're using are actually 25 years old. So once again, maybe they are a bit stuck.
Or maybe we're pointing to the fact that, one reason we're not seeing great steps in productivity is there are some serious challenges that remain for AI and data science.
So, but Tom Wheeler, again, he made a really interesting pitch. We're at Web 3.0. We're going from push to pull. He said we're on the cusp. We're marrying wireless technology with the internet, and it's allowing us, it's going to create the next railroad system. That's what it's going to be like.
Well, we heard it in agriculture, in the ag talk. We heard it in the AI. It's just the idea that there is something new that can be created by bringing these data together, the N+1 idea that Tom's talking about that's going to lead to Web 3.0.
So the question is, are we really on the cusp? Is Tom Wheeler a modern-day Nostradamus or a latter-day Willy Loman? We'll find out at some point. It may be in Bruce Greenwald's long term, which could be very long. But we've heard again and again, technological people every generation. They say they're in the midst of a revolution. And, once again, is this the railroad or is it the atomic vacuum?
I guess what bothered me, or maybe worry in the final panel, is that we may be at the cusp of a revolution, but are we starving it as a country by not investing enough in R&D? And, I thought it was pretty stunning to think that a third of college students took STEM classes, about 50, 60 years ago, and less than a tenth today. Well, we talked a lot about also labor, employment, trade, and robots. And I think that, just to go back to the first panel of the day, I think we learned there were kind of some interesting patterns that kind of wove their way through. One is, I was surprised when the panel talked about cross-border deals, the issue of nationalism came up, that nationalism, and especially impacts on employment, are figuring into cross-border deals. Probably may not have been an impact that, or a concern that figured or loomed large in the mind of deal makers.
Which is really funny, because historically when we think about deals and what's going to make them successful, it's all about synergies. It's about cutting jobs. So what are we going to do now when we have to go in and we have to show that we're not going to cut jobs, we're actually going somehow to create jobs, or the deal's not going to get approved?
And it's not just abroad, it's at home. They talked to, one of the conversations this morning was about activist investing and how much of what motivates activist investing is so-called efficiency, which translates into cutting jobs.
Yeah. And look, we just saw it when Unilever, when Kraft Heinz came after Unilever, making a proposal. The British government was very, very quick to be very concerned about jobs and was looking quickly back to a deal that Kraft did in 2010, where they had indicated they weren't going to cut jobs and weren't going to close a plant, which ultimately closed. So this is because nationalism is sort of playing into not just offshoring and taxes, but it's actually playing into M&A activity and M&A strategy.
Well, I thought was kind of cool too, Mitchell, was that I think in an odd way, Bruce Greenwald was saying, as Trump is right, he is, or whether he wants to or not, manufacturing is coming back. It's coming back. But there's a distinction between manufacturing and manufacturing jobs. Those jobs aren't coming back. Robots are, or at least the robots will rise. This is not a Terminator movie, but it's, the jobs aren't coming back. So that left also with this other, I thought, interesting concluding point that I came up with Governor Blunt, which is this idea that, trade is a complicated trade-off, that we have a lot of trade deals like NAFTA, and the existence of those trade deals is something you have to be very, very careful with, that thanks to something like NAFTA, when production goes to Mexico or up to Canada, the job loss in the United States isn't quite what you might think it is. Remember what Governor Blunt told us? He said 40% of cars manufactured, among all cars manufactured in Mexico, 40% of the components come from the United States. Among cars that are assembled in Canada, 70% of the components come from the United States.
Well, again, go back to the original slides. It's not unlike the Mustang, which is the car made in the US, and then there are all of those components made everywhere else. So what happens when we start to change those rules? Do we start to cannibalize, those cars made in Mexico and Canada? If they make fewer, they use fewer US components, are we going to be helping or are we going to be hurting? It's hard to predict.
Hard to know.
Well, look, I think we made some real progress on a number of the paradoxes we started the day off with. Maybe not as much as we hoped at times, but I think it was really great. And I think we came up with a lot of new trends, and a lot of new themes, and a lot of new questions. So hopefully that'll help guide us.
It's good material for next year.
There you go. And again, fill out your evaluation.
But wait, Mitchell, let's thank our co-organizers.
Absolutely.
We want to thank Pierre Yared.
Pierre and Olivia.
And Olivia Radin.
Stand up. Thank you, guys. This was very much a huge group effort, and we want to thank Emma and Sandy and Kathleen and Camille and Robin and a bunch of people whose names will sound like an Academy Award speech. But we really do want to thank everyone. This was really a group effort, and it's fantastic.
And we want to thank you, and we expect to see you
downstairs
and next year.
But drinks downstairs. Thank you.